Never assign a probability of 0 or 100 to any claim. There's a kind of tribalism to which conspiracy theories people believe. So Republicans have their own set, Democrats have their own set. So in one sense, conspiracy theories are for losers, as they say. Whoever loses the election thinks the other side cheated. I see Robert Kennedy Jr. just this morning tweeted out that that we all know these elections are rigged, and just because we don't like Donald Trump doesn't mean, you know, they're not actually doing these things, because Al Gore had the election stolen in 2000 by George W. Bush, and we know that was a fraudulent election. Well, hang on. So now there's a Democrat saying, you know, this is a real conspiracy. All sides do this. Everybody thinks the other side's up to no good. And that's just in politics. So that kind of tribal conspiracism applies to religious beliefs, economic commitments, ideologies, any kind of cultural belief. If my group thinks it's true, then there must be something to it. So there's a lot of interesting research in cognitive psychology on this kind of tribal commitment to a particular belief or not, right? So if you take something like climate change, do you accept it is real and human-caused or not? Well, the best predictor of this is your political affiliation. If you're more right-leaning, you're more skeptical. If you're more left-leaning, you're more accepting of it. In fact, most people don't really know what the science is behind climate science. It's a technical field, and who has time or intelligence or education to read the technical papers? So we all rely on secondary sources or tertiary sources, media sources. And what does my tribe tell me is reasonable to accept? So like in evolution and creationism debates, you know, the predictor there is what your religious attitudes are or what your attitudes are towards science. So if you ask, this is research by a guy named Andrew Stuhlman at Occidental College in Los Angeles. You ask people, do you accept the theory of evolution by natural selection? Okay, the people that say yes, and then you ask them, what is it? Explain it. They actually don't know. They'll give some Lamarckian theory, oh, the giraffe stretch its neck and then the babies have longer. No, that isn't actually what it is. So it's not just that the creationists, if they only understood the theory of evolution, they'd be accepting it. No, because the people that accept it, they don't know it either. Additional studies. You know, in America, we have this big NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. There's a big thing with Trump and before that with Obama and so on. So people that signal, I like NAFTA, I support NAFTA, or I don't think we should be at NAFTA. What is it? It's that, you know, the thing, that North free, it's something about trade. I don't even know who's in it, but I'm against it or I'm for it. Right? So these are tribal beliefs, and we all do this because who has time to check all that stuff? And so, you know, these are to a certain extent kind of an underlying rationality that seems on the surface irrational if you're wrong, but in fact, because we're social creatures, we have to rely on what other people are telling us or doing, or else how would you know? So even kind of reinterpreting some of the famous social psych experiments from the 60s and 70s, that sort of guerrilla theater social science where they, you know, lie to the subjects, like one, you have the subjects in a room filling out a form. I did a replication of this for Dateline NBC, so it was pretty amusing to watch. So everybody in the room is just an actor working for us. And we got the one person in there filling out the form. They're trying out for this reality show. And so we start pumping in theater smoke underneath the door. And no one, all our actors are told, just sit there and keep filling out the form. So they do. And so, you know, the schloob there, our target, you know, he's looking around like, well, well, all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna keep writing. And, you know, so this is called this kind of conformity to the group and, you know, this kind of foolish psychology. But is it really? Because if we were in this room right now and there was smoke coming in, my guess is most of you would not just sit there. So my taking cues from you is usually a pretty accurate reading of the world. It's kind of the pull the audience, kind of a collective wisdom of the crowd kind of thing. Usually works pretty well for basic things like that. Or, you know, Milgram's shock experiments. You know, what's the proper interpretation of that? You know, 15 volts at a time. Before you know it, the guy's all the way up to 350 volts. And so why are they doing this? Well, obedience to authority. Yeah, but what does that mean? I mean, is it really that blind? Are these people really that irrational? Because, you know, there you're at a university setting. Here's a professor in a lab coat. they can't really be having me kill somebody with electricity, really? So we replicated that in this NBC studio. And of course, it's a television producer telling them to administer these shocks. They want to be on this reality show. So there's a kind of logic to it. Well, yeah, I know it seems bad, but this guy's a TV producer. This is NBC. They can't actually be having me kill people, can they? So let me just give some background. So in cognitive psychology, the question is, are we naturally rational or irrational? Do we default to truth and believe whatever anybody tells us? Or are we naturally skeptical? And so this is kind of a debatable topic. I tend to think, for the most part, in most contexts, we're reasonably rational. And it takes a lot to get somebody to really do something foolish, join the cult or whatever. So if you just take any of these stories you hear about people that join a cult like Jim Jones's Jonestown, or the Heaven's Gate cult, or any of those, Scientology. We have that in LA. I'm from Southern California. They're all over the place. You can take the personality test and everybody fails, and you got to take this course to help your personality. Or you hold the cans and you do the little e-meter reading, and you spike it by just squeezing it. And then, that leads to a whole series of questions. Okay, so how many people, and you've seen the documentaries about all these groups, this guy right there, he's the one that gave him $100,000. All right, so that's the example we're showing. How many people did they have to go through to get that guy to write that check, right? And we're not told. What's the base rate? Compared to what? How irrational is this person? And how many steps did it take to get them there to actually take out the checkbook and write the check? And when you look into it carefully, it's a lot. It's, like months or years of this kind of programming somebody. I was thinking about this. There was a Netflix documentary series called The Tinder Swindler. Are you familiar with this? The Tinder Swindler. All right, so it's half a dozen of these women in their maybe mid to late 30s looking for love. They want to get married, have kids, the whole thing. They meet this guy. They've met a bunch of guys. Most of them, doesn't work out, all right? So here's a guy with a picture with a private jet. All right, this guy, he could be bullshitting me, but you never know. You know how guys are. But so I'll just meet with him and see how it goes, right? Because he's a good-looking guy and maybe he's got money. Anyway, so the first date, they're on the jet. They go to this 5-star resort on an island in this, and this goes on and on for weeks and months. And the women are holding up their phones. Look at the text, hundreds and hundreds and I love you, and we're going to have a baby together. You're the one. On and on and on and on. And and then it turns out that he's an international man of mystery. He goes off to Morocco one weekend after like 6 months into this relationship. They're going to get married, the whole thing. And then he calls her, oh, I'm stuck in Morocco. The bank is closed. I'm closing this $20 million deal. I need $10,000 right now because the bank doesn't open till Monday. So now if you're that person, of course, if I tell you this, you go, well, I would never send him $10,000. Are you sure? Because if you give the whole buildup, the 1,000 little things that happened for 6 months, are you really going to say to the person, you want to marry and start a family with this person? You're just going to go, no. So they do, right? So by the end of this show, you're thinking, these people are idiots to give this guy money. Well, I'm not so sure how irrational that is. And also what we don't know, because these things are carefully edited, how many women did this guy go through to get the one that sent him the $50,000? Some of them gave like $150,000 to get to that point, right? So we don't know that. The people that joined Jim Jones's group in San Francisco, this was a very liberal, progressive, integrated church, one of the first integrated churches in the United States. He's from Indiana. He moved to San Francisco because they didn't allow integrated groups like that. It was against the law in the 1950s. So there he is, manning the soup kitchens and helping the poor and integrating black and white. This is very cutting edge, right? So people that joined that group, that was a good thing. That was completely rational and reasonable, cutting edge, ahead of, on the right side of history. And it isn't until 20 years later that a handful of them, a couple hundred, moved to Guyana after 1,000 little steps along the way. Okay, so my point is that I tend to think humans are fairly rational in the right context, and that most of the time we just go through our day in a reasonably rational way, and that the standouts, that the exceptions, really take quite an effort to get somebody to fall for that particular thing. And so I side on the side of mostly rational. If you give people the tools of how to think about particular claims, which is what I do here. I like to think we can teach people how to be rational, and so. But there are. I mean, we've learned a lot in the last couple centuries on how science works. What should you believe? Knowledge, justified true belief. Well, what's justified? How is it justified? How do you know if you should believe this or that? And so then there's a whole series of kind of tools you can apply to any particular claim that you hear in the media or whatever. How should you think about the climate skeptics? How do you know the climate skeptics are wrong? I assume most people here probably accept anthropogenic global warming. I do, but why? I read people send me these papers. I'm not a climate scientist. I don't really know what they say. But I trust that the process works reasonably well and that the scientists themselves are competitive. They try to debunk each other. By the time it filters out to me in a popular science magazine or whatever story I read about climate change and the glaciers and the CO2 levels and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, they're probably getting it right, even though I don't really understand it, because the system itself is reasonably trustworthy. Not always, they may be wrong, and you can apply that to the recent COVID, vaccines. Should we vaccine? Masks? Okay, so here's an example of where there's a lot of ignorance, where we just don't know. And so errors are made, and then so there's been a kind of collapse of trust of science and medicine because of the mistakes made during COVID. But that doesn't discount the whole thing, because that's what happens when we don't know, right? If it's going to be like Ebola and 50 million people in every country die, or if it's just going to be like a bad flu, nobody knew at the time. Some people think they knew, but I don't go that far. That would be a little bit too much of a conspiracy theory. But even that, just say parenthetically, the lab leak hypothesis. I always thought that was reasonable. And then all of a sudden, you can't talk about that, or Twitter's going to cancel you or whatever. I always thought that was unreasonable, because it could be, that kind of thing. And it wasn't a conspiracy theory like the Chinese intentionally did this. Just an accident, because accidents happen, that kind of thing. But so that, there's the underlying principle there is that you have to have complete, open, free speech, dialogue, conversation. Listen to the skeptics. In this case, not me. I mean, the people that are skeptical of vaccines or whatever. It's okay. Watch Joe Rogan and talk about these things. That's okay. Watch some other show and you just know what you're getting just by getting more information. That's the only way we can find out what's true, is by talking to other people, because, to put it this way, you're not God, and neither am I. Or if you prefer the secular version, there is an objective reality, only I don't know what it is, and you don't either. So we have to work on this together and never assign a probability of 0 or 100 to any claim. And always it's possible that the outsider could be right. Just in case, you should keep a little door open right there. In Bayesian reasoning, this is called Cromwell's rule. Oliver Cromwell famously said, "I beseech you in the bowels of Christ, you might be mistaken." Right? So the Bayesian, the Cromwell rule is never assign a 0 to anything. Just in case, keep an open mind. So it's like UAPs, UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomena. It sounds so much more sophisticated than goofy UFOs. But so what do you make when you see yet another one of these posted yesterday, of these kind of triangular shaped object above a military base in the United States? What is it? To me, it looks like flares at night, because you can't make, so the eye kind of connects the dots of the flares that are floating in this triangular shape. And for some reason, the UFOs, the aliens always come in triangle-shaped spacecraft. I'm not sure why that is. So how should we think about yet another one of those? And they come up every couple of days, every couple of weeks. So here's how to think about it in a Bayesian way. So you take the pro-ufologists who think absolutely we are being visited by aliens. And then they say that, and there's been tens of thousands of sightings and stories and so on. They say that 95% of all those are fully explainable by natural phenomena. They are flocks of geese, they are flares, they are drones, they're Chinese spy balloons, they are swamp gas, they're the planet Venus, there's 100 of these different explanations that are not aliens, they're not super advanced Russian, Chinese drone technology that we don't have or anything like that. So now, so here's the bin. The bin is, 95%. Then here's two other little bins: aliens, super advanced drone technology. Okay, so a new one comes down. There it is. Oh my God, there's the video. I saw it on Twitter. What is it? What should I think that it probably is? In the big 95% bin or the two little tiny 2.5% bins, right? Okay, not impossible. Could be this is the one. Aliens have finally come here, finally, after all these, now this is the one. Or it's probably here, we just don't know what it is yet, right? So again, you don't have to go black or white. It's definitely not, or it definitely is. Just say it's probably here. It's probably not one of these. Maybe. If it turns out it is, then I want to see unmistakable evidence, like the Chinese spy balloon. There it is. Big pictures, quite clear. You can see the equipment hanging from the bottom of the balloon. You can see the jets flying up to it, shooting it down. There's the debris in the ocean. You can see them dragging the debris up. We have pictures of it. There it is. End of story, right? That's justified true belief. So when you're confronted with these anomalies, you don't have to do anything with them. Just keep an open mind. Just say, okay, I don't know. I'll assign graduate students to figure that out. They have to have something to do, right? So here, is the problem of anomalies, back to conspiracies, and that no theory of anything explains 100% of the facts. So we're always going to be left with a residue of anomalies, unexplained things. How do you explain it? And the problem is we can't explain everything, so it's okay to just say, I don't know. It might be what you think it is, two little bins, or it might be yet another one here in the big bin, but let's wait and see, right? So, and this is true in any alternative hypothesis, like my friend Graham Hancock, the alternative archaeologist, right? He's got a laundry list of anomalies that mainstream archaeologists cannot explain, or at least he says they can't. And if you watch the ancient alien shows, right? They have, every show is, here's an anomaly. Can you explain that one thing right there? And if you can't, then that proves Atlantis or the ancient aliens or the super advanced ancient civilization, whatever. No, it doesn't prove anything. It just proves that we don't know everything.
To continue watching this video, click the link in the top left or in the description below. Or visit iai.tv for more debates and talks from the world's leading thinkers on today's biggest ideas.